why we're calling the new Ebdsv5 Series virtual machine the Double Sprinkles VM for SQL Server workloads. This week on Data Exposed. Hi, I'm Anna Hoffman, and welcome to this episode of Data Exposed. Today, we're going to be talking about some exciting new updates around VM Series. And I have two very special guests joining us today, Pam and Priya. Thanks so much for joining me today. Pam, you've been a regular on the show, but can you share a little bit about what you do?
Sure, absolutely. Hi, Anna. Great to be here. So my name is Pam Lahoud, and I am the lead technical PM for SQL Server running in Azure Virtual Machine.
Awesome. Great to have you. And for those who haven't seen Pam before, we've done a ton of VM series. So you should go check those out on our YouTube channel. We're also joined by Priya, new to Data Exposed. Priya, thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Hi, Anna. Yeah, thank you for having me here today. And hey, everyone, I'm Priya Shan, and I'm a senior program manager in the Azure Compute team.
Awesome. Cool. So we have someone from the SQL VM team, someone from the Compute team, and we're going to be talking about some new options today. So Pam, maybe just to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about the different Azure Compute options and how that relates to SQL Server and Azure VMs?
Yeah, sure. So probably easier to start with a slide that sort of highlights some of the compute options that we have available. There are literally hundreds of different VM sizes, and it can sometimes be confusing, all of the different options that are out there. And when you're choosing a VM to run your SQL Server on, you might be wondering, where should I start? So the virtual machines that are available in Azure are kind of broken into families. So what I've listed out on this slide here is some of the different families, like memory optimized and GPU accelerated. Each one of these families has different features that it highlights. It may have different hardware behind it. But there's a couple that are really well suited for SQL Server workloads. So I want to highlight the ones that we like for SQL Server. The most common and the one that you should really start with when you're thinking about moving your SQL Server workloads to Azure VM are the memory optimized series VMs. And so these are the E series VMs and the M series VMs. And we particularly like these E series VMs because they're a good mix of everything that a SQL Server workload typically needs. So they've got like a 1:8 core to memory ratio. They have a large local disk that can be used for tempdb. They have a lot of local I/O throughput that's available for cache, as well as high remote throughput for your data files and your log files. So these are very well suited and priced right for SQL Server workloads. So these E-Series VMs are our favorite. So I'll highlight a couple here that we're going to talk about, but also if you have test VMs, so let's say you have, you run your QA and dev test through Azure VMs as well, you might not want some of these high-end VMs. You might want to go with a more general purpose VM. So we also have some D-Series VMs that are more general purpose, and these could be for either like entry-level SQL servers or dev and test SQL servers, pardon me. They have lower memory. So these are not going to have as much memory as those memory optimized series VMs, but they're good for those entry level. And then, as I said, those E-Series VMs are the ones that we really love. So if you're not sure what to pick for your production SQL Server, start with these. The Ebdsv5 is one of our favorites. And then this new one that we're going to talk about today is the Ebdsv5, and that's what I'm calling the Double Sprinkles VM. And this is the one that is really going to be, when it goes to GA, it's going to be our flagship VM. Gotcha. So what I'd love to do is hand it over to Priya, who's going to talk about some of these innovations, and these were all recently announced. So I'll move over to Priya's conversation about just the new hardware that's coming out in Azure.
Thank you, Pam. And hey, so as Pam just highlighted, we have announced the public preview of the new and improved memory optimized VM series. And these are called the Ebdsv5 and Ebdsv5 series. Now, this new VM series is most optimized and best suited for the SQL Server workloads. And they offer up to a 3 times increase in the VM to disk throughput performance and IOPS performance than the previous generations. So if customers need have larger database workloads that need higher IO throughput per core or higher IOPS per core, please do choose these new Ebdsv5 or Ebdsv5 VM series. And this new VM series offers 120,000 in IOPS and 4,000 megabytes per second. And now this actually comes with a local disk and without local disk version as well. And it runs on the latest generation Intel Ice Lake processor too.
Wow, that's a lot of throughput.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to, Priya, should we show them like how it compares to some of the other VMs?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move over.
Yeah, in terms of benefits to customers, what we can see here is the Ebdsv5 series is offering higher IO to core ratio than what is offered in our previous generations. So the DV4 and EV4 series offers a maximum of 1,200 megabytes per second, and the DV5 and EV5 series, if you see on the last line of a 64 vCPU size, it comes with 1,735 megabytes per second. Now, this is a 45% increase from the previous generations. But now the customers who are running specifically the SQL Server workloads typically require higher IO throughput than what is offered at a lower core count. And so now they can try the Ebdsv5 series, which offers a 4,000 megabytes per second throughput as well. And with these, customers get the desired cost savings. And this is currently available in public preview, and customers can actually sign up for preview and try out these new VM series.
Awesome. Wow, this is really exciting. I mean, I know for those SQL Server workloads, that throughput is going to be pretty
super important. Yeah. Yeah, so the higher IO throughput and higher IOPS needs from SQL Server customers or any customers who run the data-intense workloads is super critical for them. And based on the customer research that we have done over the last few months, we know that this is a common theme and for these data-intense workloads. And customers have increasing demand for remote storage performance. So we've created this new VM series, which offers higher IO throughput per core and higher IOPS per core. And it's best suited for SQL Server customers to get the better price performance.
Awesome. So you mentioned something right at the end there, and that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. The performance looks great, but I have to ask, like, how much is this going to cost? How is it going to compare? And what's the price perf really like?
Yeah, sure. So I've got some numbers that I can share around that, Anna. So the new Ebdsv5 series is comparable to the older Ebdsv4 that we used to be recommending, but as Priya showed, it's got much, much higher IO throughput. So what we found is that we did some performance benchmarking several months ago. I think it was back in March. On the E64-32DSv4. And this is one of our VMs, which is a constrained core VM, which means you get the IO throughput and the memory of the 64 core VM, but you only have 32 cores, which means you pay less licensing. So you have the same compute cost as the 64 core, but you're only paying SQL Server licensing for 32 cores. And you get the benefit of the additional memory and throughput. So this is what many customers were using in order to get that right mix of core to throughput. So what we found is we could run that same exact benchmark on the E32BDSv5 VM, which means it's also the same 32 cores, but because of the increase in IO throughput, we didn't have to go with a constrained core VM. So because of that, we actually got 30% better price performance, because if you look at this chart here, you can see that while the storage cost is the same, because it's the same amount of storage, the same number of premium disks attached, because we only had to go with an E32, the compute cost is cut in half. So we really see a huge benefit to price performance with these VMs, because out of the box, they have the right core to IO throughput and core to memory ratio. So you could simply move your existing constrained core workloads into one of these new VMs, and you could cut your cost by about 30% with making no changes to your app at all. So,
Wow.
so we're really seeing some great benefits around this, and I'm super excited about what this is going to look like when it goes to general availability. So we are in public preview with this VM series now, but at GA, this is really going to be the flagship VM for SQL Server.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And thanks so much. This has been really useful. I've learned a lot. As we kind of wrap, can you tell me a little bit again, maybe, how should I think about what's the recommendations? What should I use?
Yeah, sure. I know, because we talked about a lot. So it's probably maybe still a little bit confusing, but let me bring up a slide that kind of summarizes what we're now recommending for your SQL Server workloads in Azure VM. So we are sticking with the memory optimized. This is going to be the family of VMs that you want to focus on for your production SQL Server workloads. So the new storage bandwidth optimized VM we talked about today is the Ebdsv5 series. This is the one that once it's generally available, this is going to be the absolute best for price performance for your SQL Server workloads. This is awesome. It's got the right core to memory ratio, the right core to throughput ratio. This is it when it comes to SQL Server VMs. If you don't have as high storage bandwidth needs, you can go with the Edsv5 series. So this also has that good 1:8 core to memory ratio, but it's got slightly less, well, actually a significantly amount less IO throughput than the Ebdsv5 series. So that's a good kind of entry level all-purpose VM series. And then for your more high intensity data warehousing workloads, big iron servers, you can go with M series. This has some more of those high-end servers, but it's a lot more expensive. So I would say for most of your workloads, you want to stick with these E series. So that Edsv5 series is great, all-purpose machine. And then what I'm calling the hashtag double sprinkles VMs is the Ebdsv5 series VMs. Flagship storage bandwidth optimized VMs will be generally available in the first half of calendar year 2022.
Awesome. Cool. This is great. So, folks listening, you're hearing it here first. The Ebdsv5, I think I got that right.
You did.
Is the series to go for SQL Server and Azure VMs, currently in public preview. To our viewers, go ahead and check this out. We put some links to the documentation so you can actually check this out and maybe keep tabs on when it goes GA. But to our viewers, thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks, Pam and Priya, for joining us on the show. If you like this show, go ahead, give it a like, comment, and let us know what you think of all these different VMs. And we hope to see you next time on Data Exposed.